Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gibson, and you're back with me on today's episode, The Strong and the Wise. I don't normally have podcasts about politics. I really don't. But because of what I do with norm therapy and how I teach others to objectively look at issues, I oftentimes find myself without the need to discuss politics outside of like a forum on LinkedIn or some chat. But there are so many lies told about what's happening in politics these days that I think that we should take a look at some of the issues that they're talking about, especially in the United States. But let's take a look at some of the issues they're talking about and kind of put them in perspective. There are a few I want to touch on. I'm normally not the guy that goes into a public forum like this and talk about it. But since this is my platform and I use my other platform for my other company, I want to go ahead and just take poetic license and liberty here and talk about a few truths. The first thing is that we should stop demonizing one another. I'm not here to hurt Donald Trump or hurt Kamala Harris. That's not my objective, nor JD Vance or Tim Walz. It does me no good and you no good for that to even occur. But there are a few things that I think we should get straight about politics. The campaigns are designed to do one thing, to sway your vote. That's it. And some 60 years ago, when Kennedy and Nixon conducted a first debate, I think it was in 1960, 61, when they did that, they cultivated an environment where they knew that through television, through the constituency and voters to see them operate, to see them as a part of the fabric of the United States, and to make their judgment calls and to become alert about the needs not only of the people, but also the needs of the campaign. So some synergistic evolution began to occur where society started to look at our candidates and our potential leaders as an opportunity to have a relationship with them. Having a relationship with anybody in the world, and I give this advice often, is kind of tricky. Every relationship you ever have in life is nothing but an exchange of power. It's an exchange of power when you have a relationship with your mother and your daughter, or your father and his son, or your boss and his worker, or your clergy and the parishioner, or your grocer and you. Every relationship you ever have, especially new romantic relationships, because that's what we're doing with campaigns and candidates. We're romanticizing our involvement in trying to intellectualize our relationship at the same time. Same thing you do when you get a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend. You do the exact same thing. You actually exalt them. You do. You see that person, that wonderful human being, you have nothing but eyes for that person. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at that person like they're the best thing since toast. And you can't get them off your mind. You spend most of your time trying to figure out whether or not whatever you're doing, whatever action you're taking, whatever they're doing, whatever action they're taking is complementary. You're always trying to find out whatever you're doing, is it complementary? Are you controlling the narrative? Are they controlling the narrative? You're doing all this. So what I give people advice over at our therapy is that what you should do for the first 6 months of knowing anyone or getting to know any relationship is to observe that relationship without attachment. Let that person or that entity be themselves. without attaching, without any outside influence, without listening to other people, just you. Because the first 6 months of any relationship has been proven scientifically is fake. After the first 6 months in a relationship, enough time has ensued, whether your partner will fart in front of you, or your partner will drink after you and slobber down their face without running to go clean themselves up to look pretty for you, and you won't shave that day as you normally do every day prior, and you look scraggly and rough. You're wearing dirty underwear you didn't wear before because you cleaned them all the time to make sure that first 6 months you put on your P's and Q's and your best attire. That's what you do with politics. But we've taken that step, out of politics, where we don't get to know our candidates. And I mean, objectively know them. I think we're so tribal in our efforts to understand our campaigns and understand our people and our guy, or in this particular case, our gal or our guy. We're so intrinsically focused on that within ourselves to be on that guy's or gal's side that we forget the bigger picture. Some people call it confirmation bias, or cognitive dissonance, or the Pygmalion or the Rosenthal effect. And these are very true and real phenomena that occur within people. People become so indifferent about their evaluations of their own guy or gal that they forget that critical thought is necessary to make better decisions. Okay, I want to get into some meat of the conversation, but one of the things I was interested in is every time, like I watched the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And I have to say, as a very objective thinker and doer, Donald Trump lost that debate hands down. And I'm not here to speak badly of Donald Trump, even though I don't like him at all. My objective is not to dislike him and hurt him. My objective is to get out of him the things that I think me and my constituents and his constituents in my sphere of people that we want. If we can get that out of him, he's my choice. But if we can't, he can't be my choice. That's how politics works. That's how elections and your privacy of your vote, that's how it works. This entire system of government, the republic, is nothing but a name for representative government. That's what republic means. It means republic, representative government. And it basically says that we as a people put people in positions of power, offices of authority, political authority, to do our collective, not individual, but our collective desires and wants and needs and understandings on behalf of a governmental posture for us. Because that's why we elected them. That's why it starts off with we the people, based on the republic. But during the debate, for instance, a couple of things came up that were just funny that most people don't understand. And I've heard this throughout the election cycle. Oh my God, for the last few years, last couple of years anyway, is that how Biden and Harris screwed up the economy. But what people don't consider is because they have very short memories and they don't remember what they went through those fiscal policies that occurred prior. They just don't remember. I mean, we have brain housing groups that, only can take so much. So the next new thing that comes in replaces the old thing. So we forget about some of the events of past. So I'll remind you. If you'll remember, there was a $2 trillion tax cut prior to COVID. For who? And every economist in the world, as Donald Trump would say, and we all know it, but we don't all know it. We only know it because he tells us we know it. But every economist, every major economist in the world said that the $2 trillion tax package that Trump put together for the people, we the people, benefited the top 1 or 2% of, and up to 14% of the people in America. Everybody else got higher taxes, whether you know it or not. That actually happened. And if you go back and you go to the accounting and budgeting and all that offices of the US government, CBO, you go over there, you check it, it'll say exactly that. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not trying to lie to you. Just go look it up. And if I'm off by a point or two, I'm still right. So don't parse my words. Just look it up. When he did that, he put a hole in the US of revenue generation because he took out 2 trillion that would have come in and it had to be replaced somehow. So what did he do? Immediately after the tax cuts went through, he went on a tour because he still did his rallies. And he started talking about how tariffs were good. Tariffs are good, but they're also something else that we don't consider anymore. And we used to do it all the time. Tariffs are sacred. You don't screw with tariffs. Why not? Because when you screw with tariffs, you create vacuums that cannot catch up with the supply chain or the supply of money or the fiscal responsibility of the posture of the nation in that moment. You just can't catch up with it. Normally, for executive branch fiscal policy to take hold, executive branch fiscal policy to take hold, when a president says, I'm going to do this and it's financial and it's going to affect the country, it normally takes about 18 months for it to take effect, no matter what it is, if it's fiscally related. And I'll explain to you why it takes that long. And oftentimes up to 3 years for it to take effect. Most governments, new governments who take over or win the election, do this to their opponents every time. That's when they start to allocate funds. So they create problems for the incoming administration that they'll be so busy trying to deal with, they won't be able to get anything else done. The Republicans in the United States are the best at this I've ever seen any organization in the world. They run up all the debt, call themselves conservatives, run up the every fiscally responsible area of the government. They run it up and run it out. And then they leave office. And then they watch the Democrats, stupid Democrats sometimes. And I'm a Democrat. Well, I'm not really a Democrat, but I identify with them more than I identify with Republicans. And I'm not an independent. I'm just a guy who votes my conscience. I voted for Republican. I voted Democrat over all my years. So I could care less about the parties. Maybe that's why I can speak to these topics. But Republicans are good. And these are not dumb people. A lot of people try to say that because the monster truck crowd or the wrestling crowd is a part of MAGA and all that, that they're dumb. I had a special forces colonel pin a medal on me, a very high one day. A couple times, as a matter of fact. His name was Scruggs. And some of you out there who's in special forces know about this legend of a guy. He pinned a medal on my chest. I'm a young kid back then. And he said to me, you know, I'm in night school even, and correspondence courses trying to get educated. And he said, Sergeant Gibson, you've worked under extremely arduous and austere conditions. He had that Kentucky voice, the one you normally think is dumb, but it's not. This guy was a Rhodes Scholar, amazingly intelligent, brilliant guy. And when he spoke to me that way, it changed the way I thought about people for the rest of my life. You know, being a street kid coming from Chicago, I just looked at people differently because this was a brilliant man. And whether I agree with his policies or the missions we went on or the things we did or not was irrelevant. What was relevant, he was a good leader. And he was smart. He was damn sure smart. And I just have to say that to you because it was a part of my growth. So I've taken that line of thought into what I even have to say tonight. I'm not argumentative. I'm not going to lie to you. And if I exaggerate my numbers a little bit, hey, I'm human. And if I misspeak a term or a phrase, correct me. That's okay too. Correction is fine. If you can't call somebody out and get truth from them, then you're wasting your time. So call me out. But don't just bitch and holler when you get on board and start to talking and start whining about stuff and what about this and what about that. That's that's so useless. But let's get back to the point at hand. When you're dealing with fiscal policy from an executive branch, be it through executive authority and or be it through Congress signing a bill on a desk or a presidential executive action, no matter what it is, it takes time. Why? I'm going to try to explain this as simple as I possibly can. Right now, everything in the world costs a lot of money because Trump stood out in front of the world and told his MAGA fans and support groups, told them that tariffs were good, and he's going to show China, and China is gonna pay the U.S. billions of dollars because he put that 30% tariff. So what does she do? President Xi is a smart guy. This is not a dumb guy. He's a smart guy. He didn't contest it. He said, sure, United States, put 30 points on top of what we're already doing. Absolutely, I'm not going to contest it at all. If you notice, you never heard a word from Xi about it. Why? Because tariffs are not good. And he knows it. Because the only people who benefit from tariffs, because the government charges these levies and fees and tariffs, the only people who are beneficial are the governments. It's another form of taxation. So if you put a premium on goods that are already in the supply chain, in the supply line, if it's already there and you put 30 points on top of it as of a certain day, then people have to now start the and absolutely clear. Just saying, so you'll understand. because this is a strategy that works. Let's go in, spend the way we want, do what we want, make things happen the way we want them. And make sure while we're doing those things, what we want and how we want to do it. Let's blame the Democrats, because by the time all the spending that we've done as Republicans while we were in office catch up with the government, by that time, what's going to occur is it'll be in the lap of the incoming administration, or it'll be in their second term, which they very seldom do 2 terms, except for George W. Bush in quite some time. And so they know it's going to fall in the lap of the Democrats right at a time when the Republicans continue to say, look at the Democrats, how they just screwed up the budget, how they made everything a higher price. And that's what they did. Trump did that, I think, on purpose, because that's what the Republicans do. He may not want to have done that. He may just did it because his advisors told him that's their playbook. That could very well be it. But what we want to do is understand how things work. So we're not giving any kind of understanding to what's been said, the rhetoric. We're not giving any appeasement to trying to be on the side of rhetoric, because that's what we're doing now in our political parties. People don't know that if Biden stood up today and said, I'm going to lower the tariffs, you won't see it for another 1.5 to 2 years. And then during that 1.5 to 2 years, you're going to complain. I thought you said you were bringing down the tariffs. I thought you said you were doing this, but it's a whole lot that goes into bringing down the tariffs. And what you don't ever do is touch tariffs. You just don't do it, because tariffs are a settled understanding, just like Roe versus Wade was settled law. But they changed it anyway, and it blew up the country. Good, bad, or indifferent. It blew everything up. Same with tariffs. Now Trump actually said during the debate and before the debate many times that he wants to, if elected again, he wants to raise tariffs again another 20%. So that smart Chigo, you won't hear Xi say a word. Why? Because that money that Trump is charging China for billions of dollars is going to be passed off to the consumers. The consumers are going to pay that 50% or 30% or 20% more, not the government. They put that money, they pocket those tariffs. So does she. If she put a 30-point tariff on the U.S., they're going to rake in billions of dollars as well. They're not going to be empty-handed on tariffs. Whatever the U.S. does to them, they're just going to match it. They're absolutely going to. They're going to probably pre-tax their goods before they even get to the port and before they even get through customs to pay those tariffs. So if they've already pre-packaged their 30 points, that means a car that costs $100 now costs $130 by the time it gets to port. And when it goes through the levy and tariffs and duties process of customs, when it goes through that other taxation of the 30 points from Trump's is going to hit on. So now you have a double whammy. So that car that costs $100 now has 2 30-point additions to it instead of 2 7-point additions that it once had. So who makes that money? Best Buy doesn't pay it. IBM won't pay it. Kroger doesn't pay it. The car dealerships don't pay it. The consumer pays it. That's what happens. So your cost of your car that would have cost you $114 now costs $160. You get it? That same car that you could have bought for $114 costs $116. Now, there are many other repercussions of that as well. If you look at your toilet paper nowadays, it's worse quality than what it used to be. If you look at your paper towels or your candies or your meat stuffs. The meat is thinner cut. It's more expensive for a smaller cut. Your candy bars are smaller. Your burgers are smaller. Same price or higher. This is what's going on now. Tariffs is a bad idea. And I wanted to take a minute out to educate people on why it's a bad idea. And it's not good for the nation. It's not good for the people, especially we the people. And it's terrible for the economy. The first rule of money in economics is the more money you have on the street, the better off the population will do. The less money you have on the street, the worse off the population will be. And by everything costing more money, there's less money available on the street because once you make a purchase for what would have been, 3 or 4 items in the past, you're making a purchase for just one item and it's encumbering all of your money. And then multiply that times 350 million people in the US or 9 billion around the world. That's a whole lot of vacuum created because of the higher prices. Now, I'm saying this in a very lay term way. I'm not going to get into all the different laws that govern this type of economic, but I can tell you for a fact that's a bad decision to raise any kind of taxes against the people. And this is supposed to be the conservative party, the Republican Party. They call themselves proudly conservatives. Ask any conservative Republican what that means. And they'll say, we're about smaller government. We're about lesser money. We're about, keeping prices low, keeping the common person, well established in their own right and in their workplace and in their homes and schools. That's not what they're doing. At least leadership isn't doing that. And I'm sure some of your old school Republicans, your old guard, are, either turning around in their graves, or they're lobbying to do something different. So anyway, I just want to cover tariffs for a minute. Now, a couple of other things that was said about Trump's strong economy. Now, with the same logic, which is sound logic, the same laws and principles of economics that have been cemented for several hundred years in most universities around the world. Right in that sweet spot where Trump should have been able to really tremendously affect the economy in such a wonderful way, and it really be his baby. What happened? COVID hit. And COVID took the winds right out of his sails. I have to be fair to Trump. It took it like getting punched in the chest and got the wind knocked out of you. That's what happened to Trump and his economy when COVID hit. So it wasn't about Trump's great economy, because it wasn't Trump's. It was still Barack Obama's economy from his time in office, that it was just catching up to Trump. Just like I discussed with you about the tariffs, that financial opportunity that was created by Barack Obama sailed its way through the Trump administration. Every president will either benefit or will be to their detriment what the previous presidents do, especially financially. So, with that being said, it takes time. You can't say today's economy is all Biden's fault. The COVID, what was it? Additional $7 trillion and $2 trillion for the tax cuts. Even with taking in billions upon billions of dollars in trade money through tariffs and duties and excise taxes and all of that, even in taking in that revenue couldn't even match what was being taken out of the U.S. in those trillions of dollars. And we could have avoided that. I was actually in the Middle East during the time of the initial parts of COVID. And I watched it from afar, what happened. It was truly amazing how the whole world, as a matter of fact, where I was in the Middle East, I was in Dubai at the time. And where I was, they started cleaning the virus off of the streets that November. They knew about this China virus or COVID or this unexplained virus the November prior. And if they knew here, because they were in the streets cleaning the leaves and spraying down the walls of every building, spraying every car with some high solution of detergent. And, I mean, they literally cleaned everything. I watched them do it. It was crazy. And they said, we're not going to let this thing run rampant here. And they started way before anyone else. And I'm like, because, as I spent a lot of time in Dubai, I saw that the, Asian people, principally Chinese people, were coming in droves all the time for tourism and business and banking. I mean, this is the hub of the world, one of the business hubs of the world. And they caught on rather quickly because they restricted China in November of the prior year. When the U.S. was talking January, February, in November, the year prior, they had already stopped the Chinese from coming in. And I know I contracted COVID during that time because where I lived, a lot of tourists would come through there, Chinese and Asian and that kind of thing. And of course, we know the virus originated there. I'm not trying to cast blame, but this is all fact. And I got so sick, I literally called my family and told them goodbye. I couldn't even walk. I was strapped to my bed for about 10 days and nobody knew what it was. This was that November, not December or January or February when the United States decided to catch up with the rest of the world. We spent those 4 months and we knew back then in November that this was a problem. But Trump said, hey, it's the China virus. It'll be here 2 weeks and then it's gone. You'll see. It'll be just like nothing ever happened. And the next story we got was what? The people on the cruise ship were stuck and Trump on national television said, leave them out there. Don't let them in. American citizens. American citizens. This is on television, he said it. So you don't have to even take my word again. Look it up. Just find the real way he says Keep the next one of these things I'm going to do. I'm going to absolutely bring reels with me. Do some fact checking. Whether you watch it or not or understand it or not, it's beyond me. I could care less. I care that I try my best to tell the truth. If you don't like what I'm saying, I don't care. Look it up. You want to argue with me? I don't care. I love arguing. I love confrontation. So bring it. I'm okay with that. But don't not in this form. I want to be as fair as I possibly can. But when he told those people to stay out there, that told me that the problem was much bigger than anyone had ever anticipated, especially with what I'm seeing while I'm sitting in the Middle East watching all of this unfold. I wasn't about to get on a plane and try to fly back to the United States. And what happened? What's going on? I'm like, oh, hell no. These people are preparing here and we're not in the States. So what ultimately happened when the body bags started coming in, and I think we got to a total of a little over 1.1 million people who died during the COVID endeavor, during the pandemic, who died in U.S. And people start parsing words like it was comorbidity and morbidity. You know, what was the morbidity and what was the comorbidity? Well, he really didn't die of COVID. He died of collapsed lung. His comorbidity was the collapsed lung, or the COVID was a comorbidity, as most people tried to do. But you know that's untrue. If I get into a car accident and get smashed, and my heart on the operating table stop working, they're not going to say I died of a heart attack. They're going to say I was crushed by a car and I died from subsequent injuries. You get COVID, that's the car accident. And whatever ravaged state COVID wants to send you through, you die from that, or you're hurt or debilitated from that. So some people could attack their lungs, other people attack their brains, other people attack their entire body, other people attack their liver or their kidneys. But make no mistake, COVID killed them, not the part of the body that was attacked by COVID. That's just stupid to watch people have bent over backwards to make that a real thing. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And a lot of you bought it. And that's not how it works anywhere in the world. But for COVID, people tried to make it work. That the comorbidity rate was this and that, and parsing words. You know, that confirmation bias, trying to make something what you already believe the thing is kind of really stupid. We got to stop that as a nation in either party. But the level of cognitive dissonance, separating yourself from a rational understanding and critical thought, is just as dumb. We got to, dumb you. That's a shame. But we continue forward, and Trump became president, and a lot of things happened because of Trump. Mexico would pay for the wall. Never did. 80,000 different things. No, let me be honest. That's too many. 32,000 things Trump said while in office were fact checked as lies. Period. Most of the organizations that supported him, especially Fox News, they lost $700 million in a lawsuit for the lies. Rudy Giuliani, you haven't heard much from him because of the lies. 42 out of 44 people who worked with Trump during the administration will not support him and will not vote for him. Dick Cheney came out the other day. Now I can't say I hate Dick, but he's one of my least favorite politicians. Old bastard. He's one of my least favorite politicians. I thought he was a devil incarnate. But I do like his daughter, Liz, and I think the Republican Party fell out of love with her because she supported Trump's impeachment. You know, it's a whole nother conversation we can have. But Dick Cheney came out and said he's going to vote for Kamala Harris. That would be equivalent in my head to George Washington rolling over in his grave, standing up, doing a break dance, walking down to the local pub or tavern, getting an ale or a drink, coming back to his grave, to sit there and just have a drink to go, what the hell is going on? That's what I equivocate Dick Cheney to saying he'll vote for Kamala Harris. If that doesn't tell people something, I don't know what else does. But this man, of all the men in the entire world, to say that is precedent setting. And now Trump's own vice president, Mike Pence, came out and followed suit as a former vice president, said in good conscience he could not vote for Donald Trump. And people scoff at him. People call him names. People think he should have been hung on January 6th, which I watched from start to finish, and Trump did absolutely nothing to ameliorate the situation, nothing. Everybody knows it. As Trump says, everybody knows it. You know, there are things that people don't understand about how our government works. Some guy, I can't remember his name, in my LinkedIn, he started talking to me about how Marxism was bad and this, that, and the other. And people say these words, socialism, communism, Marxism. They say these things and they don't know what the hell they mean. It's become their buzzword. That because Kamala Harris, because Donald Trump suggested that Kamala Harris' dad was a Marxist during the debate. When Karl Marx decided to research democracy, is how Marxism was born, in his research and findings of democracy in the West. That's how Marxism was born. He wasn't a politician. He was just a part of the social and intellectual elite, Karl Marx was. That's it. And he was, until this very day, his teachings are in most of your major, if not all of your major institutions of learning in the entire world right now. Because Marxism was nothing but the study of democracy and the fallout between not only the culture and the economics of that understanding of democracy, but also the politicization of that finding or that outcome. That's all it is. And it's not Karl Marx's fault that bad people pick out only the things that benefit them in his findings from his research on democracy, and they put that into parts of socialism and communism and terrorism and any other kind of ism. It's not Karl Marx's fault, and it's darn sure not the student or the teacher's fault who's teaching these philosophies, because they're the base of most of our foundations in the entire world of politics. Everybody uses Karl Marx from time to time. And some guy tried to tell me that I was a Marxist because I don't agree that her dad was a Marxist because he taught a class on Karl Marx, if that's the case. That's not even been solidified yet, and people are running with that. But let's say it is the case, and I'm just not up on my information right now. Let's say it is the case. So what? Wherever you graduated from in college, I guarantee you there's a handful, if not more, professors in that university who taught Karl Marx. I guarantee it. And there are millions, tens of hundreds of millions, billions of people in the world who understand Karl Marx. They just don't know how to use it because it's a dirty word, Karl Marx. So if they use any parts of it, it's the empirical information or the intrinsic information that they've learned, in this case, extrinsic information that they've learned while, studying in college. And they apply these principles and understandings and laws of economics and everything else that was brought about because of his study of the culture, but more importantly, the economics of the culture when it came to Western democracy and also its politicization of that culture. He saw that they can marry, and he came up with some pretty tremendous findings. So if you look up Karl Marx and you want to call him a bad word because you're not smart enough to understand that nobody's trying to convert you to a Marxist, that just happens to be his name, Marx. And we've denigrated it so much, and now it's a bad word to say Karl Marx. That's just stupid. This is intellect. One of the smartest men who's ever lived, not one of the smartest. Absolutely. Really take a look at it. You'll find his findings may not even be in agreement with you, but they're solid and they're taught around the world for a reason, to include and especially the United States. So when people talk to me like that, and they talk to me in terms of, well, you're a Marxist because you believe in, first, you don't even know what the hell Marxist is. You have no idea what is a Marxist. What's a socialist? What's a communist? You couldn't tell me the difference if your life depended on it. And even if you did read something off the internet, you haven't lived it. You haven't tried to understand it and ingest it or digest it. You just spew it out as a hate-mongering trope, as if something you're saying matters, and it doesn't. That makes you look kind of stupid, whether you're a Democrat, I've heard Democrats do it, and Republicans. Very seldom do I hear independents talk bad about people of knowledge. Independents are going to take over the Democrats and the Republicans and the MAGAs and the left wings and all the crap you like to call it, to demonize one another. They're going to take over one day. I guess I would identify more with the independent than even the Democrat or even the Republican. I guess I would. But I like championing rights for the people. My whole life has been about championing other people. Most people don't know, but when you see DOL next to a guy's signature on a post or something like that, it means de oppresso liber. It's Latin for free the oppressed. I've been helping oppressed people my whole life, even to what I do this very day. We help abuse victims around the world. I can talk more about that in another podcast, but I want you to get the gist of this one. If you're going to be voting, nobody's trying to change your vote. That's the dumbest thing that people ever try to do. Whenever you try to change people in life, we teach at our company to our patients, but also to just anybody who will listen. There are a lot of people coming to us for wisdom these days, and we have a lot of wise people. But when people are looking for opportunities to understand their constituencies, but more importantly, understand their candidates. You guys should just let them and stop trying to sway their opinion on everybody just on your tropes and conspiracy theories and garbage that you spew. Let them do their homework. And please take a look at all. I watch Fox, I watch Newsmax, I watch ABC, CBS, I watch CNN, Rachel Maddow, you name it, I'll watch them. Why? So I can weigh for myself what's going on instead of some guy next to me saying, well, one guy told me today in writing, he said, he wrote next to my name on LinkedIn, he said, SF. And then he put the LOL there, like laugh out loud. After something I said as logical as I'm speaking now, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody. I just wanted people to know what is really happening instead of what they've been told by the guy next to him who believes that it's okay to grab women by their private parts. I just try to enlighten people when I see something stupid written on the internet or believed by people for no apparent reason other than their fears. But it's a whole nother conversation. He said SFLOL. And I wrote back to him. And I'm going to paraphrase because sometimes I write off the quip cuff. I just do. I said to him in the most eloquent manner I could that at the end of the day, if you believe that I'm LOL, well, you should laugh at me because I'm SF, because I gave a sage and cogent understanding of something. And you have nothing to do but laugh at what I'm saying. You can't respond with, you're wrong, Michael, because, and then lay down facts, not who did what and the gun control and all this crap trope that people normally go through. But talk to me about what we're talking about. Stay on point. Stay on message. Have it out with me. Call me out. It's okay. I welcome you. Call me out. And I will absolutely respond to you. But call me out like you're looking for answers, or you're teaching me something, or you're showing me a better way, or you're not trying to change my vote. You're trying to enlighten me. If there were enough issues on which you could enlighten me, wow, I'd vote for Trump too. But not one person has been able to enlighten me about anything about Trump at all. Nothing. Nothing. And I've begged people, I've written it in my post. Somebody please tell me one good thing Trump has done since he's been in office. For everybody, not just MAGA, not just his friends or his rich people or his constituencies that he favors, but all Americans. What one good thing as a president did he do for everyone? And not one person to this date. the sound bites and seeing the pictures, the stills. That's what they're doing. And they're taking them seriously. They have nothing else to go on. Most people don't have the capacity to sit there and follow politics. It's boring. It's hard, especially if they've taken out civics from the curriculum. They've taken civics out of the curriculum. Every Republican administration in the past 35 years have gnawed and chewed on the Department of Education. Some years back, maybe 20 years, if you walked into a high school, you would normally see trumpets and violins and drums and marching bands, and you would see art classes, and all of these humanities were stripped from just about every medium to poor school district in the country. Why? Why take out humanities? Why take out civics? For those of you who don't know, civics is how you learn how government works. If you don't know how government works, they can tell you anything and you'll believe everything they tell you. That's why they want to get rid of the Department of Education. Not because it's a drain, not because it's teaching bad stuff to our children. And those of you out there who contesting me about Karl Marx, they put Karl Marx's stuff on a banned list too from the Republican Party in Project 2025. And I read most of it and still reading. And it's horrible. It's a nightmare project. It's Gestapo. If you really want to be honest, it will lead from burning books to burning bodies. Every dictatorship, every fall of every government starts and ends with ridding themselves of education. That's the first thing to go. Remember, one of the missions of special forces is PSYOPs, psychological operations, and G5 and S5 operations. Those of you who know what I'm talking about. The first thing they do is get rid of education. Trump mentioned that during his term. Now, I don't even want to bring up Prince, but his sister, Betsy DeVos, who was the last Secretary of Education during the Trump administration, she wasn't that bright. She couldn't defend herself through a wet paper bag when it came to education. She just couldn't. Very inarticulate about the very thing she was tasked to do. And why do you think that was? Why do you think they put the most inefficient people in the Department of Education? Republican Party, every time they've been in office, do the exact same thing with the Department of Education because they want to dumb it down. Your children are not learning about anything at all when it comes to civics and how their government works. What are the three branches of government? The executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. 9 out of 10 people who are walking the streets below the age of 40 do not know that answer. They don't know how even a bill is made. What's a bill? They don't know that before a law becomes a law, it has to first be a bill. They don't know because we've taken that out of the curriculum, especially because the dumber people are about politics, the easier the politicians can get their will done. It's just that simple. You could be the smartest doctor, attorney, you could be the smartest scientist, the best at whatever you do that requires a great intellect, the geneticist. You could be anything you want to be. But if you're dumb at politics, that doesn't make you stupid. You're still a bright scientist, still a great lawyer. You're still a wonderful banker. You're a fantastic human being, a great politician. Well, I'm using that metaphorically, politicians, but I'll say this to you. But if you take civics and anything about governance, anything about we the people, if you take that out of the curriculum, you're creating that movie Idiocracy. Remember that movie Idiocracy with the guy with the funny nose? I can't think of his name. His brother. Yeah, his brother. It'll come to me. But anyway, and Terry Crews was in it as President Camacho. It was the funniest movie because people were so dumb in the future because they kept dumbing down people so much that everybody was just dumb. And the person who could have been, at the lowest end of the spectrum in a previous life would end up being the smartest person in the world in that life. That's how dumb people got. And it was a parody, of course. But if you look at it, that's what's been happening. We've been dumbing down our population about politics, not about their craft, not about their veterinarian work, or not about their humanitarian efforts around the world, borders with doctors, not about all these things. We've not dumbed any of that down. But we have dumbed down their political prowess, their understanding of how things work. The less you know, the less you can defend or attack against. Sometimes you have to be on the offense when you're dealing with your government. I don't mean J6 offense. That was just stupid. But you have to be on the offense. You have to attack those people in a way where you attack them in force of intellect. You attack them in force of understanding of what you want and what your desires. You call them, you write letters, you go there, you email, you stand outside their office, you protest. You have to sometimes be offensive in the way you move towards your political representatives. And I don't mean physically violent at all. You put people there as a part of the republic, that collective understanding that they're there to do your will. Donald Trump stood in front of the world and said he was the one that got rid of Roe versus Wade. And each one of the justices that he put on the Supreme Court said that Roe v. Wade was settled law. And not a year after they get in there, they overturned Roe or gutted it. That says a lot. Whether it was what you wanted or not is irrelevant. They were under oath when they said that. And they've been going even further than that. They just told the world that as a matter of new law and new understanding of the land, that the president of the United States in his official capacity can do what the hell he wants to do, because Donald Trump asked for it in the Supreme Court. No other presidency in the United States even fathomed to think that way, because that would be a dictatorship. That would be an extreme agenda against the values of the United States, to give a president unfettered authority to kill somebody, stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it. Think about that. Not in the history of our country has one other politician even tried to get that, because it was antithetical to who we are as a nation. But this Supreme Court gave it to Donald Trump. Now, Kamala Harris, people are running around saying, oh, she's not qualified. I don't like her laugh either. I don't. Now, I met her a few times in my life back in the day. Yeah, she's a nice person, very wonderful person, especially when she was younger. Really amazing lady. But I'll say this to you, and this is important. She was a prosecutor. And for those of you who don't know what it takes to be a prosecutor, look it up. That's a serious gig all by itself. We, the people, is no joke to these prosecutors. And she did well. She did so well as a prosecutor, whether you like her decisions or not. Like Judge Eileen Cannon, as a judge, she makes the worst decision throwing out that case from Donald Trump on the espionage case. Made the worst decision. Very, very one-sided. Just for having him in his bathroom, that's a open and shut case. But I'll let it go. A judge, did that. The prosecuting side couldn't do anything about it. It's over. I let it go. I don't like it. That's true. But Kamala Harris was a prosecutor, and she did very well, whether you like her decisions or not. That's irrelevant. After prosecutor, she was the attorney general, an elected Attorney General of the not of the United States, of the state of California, the largest um, state in the United States and the fifth largest economy in the world. Just that one state, the fifth largest economy in the world. She was their attorney general, and she really did fight against transnationals and drug traffickers and human traffickers, and she really did champion that. Look at her record. Look at her record. Whether you like her decisions or what she went after or not, or was she political, or was she a woman of the people, and all that crap? Yes, she was, because we the people was the first thing. I what did she say? For the people. That was her phrase. In every office she's been in to date. And after Attorney General, she was elected, not appointed, elected United States Senator of the state of California. Unprecedented. And then after that, she was elected Vice President of the United States. Very natural order of things. First, she was an attorney, prosecutor, attorney general, United States Senator, Vice President of the United States, and now she's vying and running for president. And some of you have the nerve to ask, is she qualified? Or say that she's not qualified. You give any man, especially any white man, those very same credentials, very same. He's the best thing since toast. And Trump has none of those credentials. None. He doesn't even understand how government works, and he's been the president. He says things so out of the park, it's not even funny. He doesn't take responsible his words. There's people in Springfield right now being hunted down, because they won't get up off the lie about dogs and cats being eaten by Haitians. I've been in Haiti and stayed there for several months, and I understand how things work in Haiti. And I can tell you for a fact what he's saying is untrue. These people were documented immigrants who were authorized by the U.S. Department of State to come to the United States and take those jobs in Springfield, Ohio. These weren't illegal immigrants. They weren't eating any cats and dogs, but Trump, especially J.D. Vance, and he's a senator in Ohio, they needed a distraction. So I'm going to tell you why they distracted and put everybody on dogs and cats and Haitians eating them. Right now, and I'm going to let you go in a little while, but I want to get as much information as I can now to debunk some of the stupidity that's out there. And if you're trying to make up your mind about who you're going to vote for and who you're going to, whether you don't change your vote, that's okay. But at least you know why you're doing it. And it's not just the tropes and the crap you've been hearing from your family and your friends, or the fear that you have of making your own decision. But there's a Senate nominee, not nominee, he's for the Republican Party, he's their nominee for running for United States Senator in the state of Ohio. He just won the primaries. And after the primaries, something really strange happened. He was indicted for monies in his campaign, that kind of thing. I think the story goes, what I've been able to find so far is that he wanted to buy a Porsche or a Mercedes-Benz dealership, something like that. So he put $9.5 million of his campaign funds as a down payment for a $40 million Mercedes-Benz dealership or Porsche dealership, one of those high-end car things. And to cover that up and to put all attention on dogs and cats and Haitians, these rumors were started. And they want this guy to get through the elections. Look him up. His name is Bernie Moreno. Bernie Moreno. Look it up. Look at how they're protecting him from, of course, the exposure of what he just did and was caught. I think it was by the FBI, if I'm correct or not. But I could be wrong, but I know that story's out there. I'm not as accurate because the information is still coming in. But do your homework on this guy. They want him to unseat Sherrod Brown. That's what they want. So they could try to take over the Senate. So in the event that Kamala wins, they can do the Mitch McConnell thing to Kamala that they did to Barack Obama. Or if Trump wins, they can rubber stamp everything that Trump says that's on their agenda. That's what they're doing. But they don't want you to know about that. So let's keep your brain occupied with what? Cats, dogs, Haitians eating them, death threats, bomb threats. Let's keep you busy and distracted. Hey, nothing to see over here while the thieves and the pilferers take the money. Go back to the your Hades or your Haitians eating. Go back to your Haitians eating dogs and cats and animals and snakes and carrying on. You see how dumb they think you are? They really think you're just this ignorant to fall for it. And a lot of you have. So you put yourself in that dumb or ignorant category. That's okay. We're all dumb about something until we're not. Until we're not. You can fix dumb. But after you know the truth and you do your own research and you just don't look at Fox or Newsmax or just one Facebook statement as your decision-making process. But if you look at everything, look at all sides, whether you like Democrats or not, Democrats or whatever you call them, whether you like them or not, sometimes I think some of them are Democrats myself, but not all of them. Not all of them. Not even a few of them compared to the way people talk about them. Even there are some very good Republican people out there that I admire and like and respect. I just don't like the position they've been put in where they have to go with a certain leader or the party disowns them. Good Lord. Think about that for a minute. Your daughter is in a competition to become the president of the student body of her high school. And all she has to do is some unsavory act with the football quarterback in the bathroom. And everybody will support her through violation of herself. Think about that. That's what's happening with the Republican Party now. People have to rape themselves. People have to bow down and kiss the ring. People have to stop and be quiet or do as their master says. There's no independent critical thought there collectively going on. Now, there are people there who are strong enough and who have backbone, who are still conservatives. And I sometimes like that part of politics, having conservatives. They balance the Democrats out very well. But that independent, keep an eye on it. I'm telling you, it's going to be the wave of the future. But just understand, my whole podcast about being strong and wise is not about me being stronger than you or you being stronger than me or wiser than me and me wiser than you. It's not about that. This is just about putting commonsensical issues on the table and looking at it from a different perspective. Something that you can actually use and not just whine and bitch about it. I can't believe you said that. You can't be SF if you don't agree with me because, you know, who the hell I can give a damn about who you think I should be voting for or who you think I should support. That's my business. I got nothing to do with you. You vote for Trump. You can vote for the plastic doll in the garbage in the junkyard if you want. I don't care. But you're not going to influence me on my vote. You're not ever. Nor can you bully me. I may not be able to whip everybody's ass in the world, but I'll give you a fight that you will you will remember. So I'm not even interested in that. So stop. It doesn't work. You rile me up. You make me want to rip you to pieces after that. Just understand people have differences of opinion. And America was born on individuality, the individual man having rights. maybe not all of us, especially the black ones, were not included in on that, which we'll have a whole nother conversation on about that and reparations and all that in the future, which you may want to look at, because I look at reparations quite differently than most people. But I can guarantee you something. When it all comes out in the wash these days, everybody's a part of that we the people, not just the MAGA people, not just the far left people, not just Nancy Pelosi, not just Mitch McConnell, but we're all a part of that we the people. All of our constituencies, all of our voters, all of the people who work in government, we're all a part of that. Every civilian in the country, even the civilians who aren't old enough to vote yet, will grow into and grow up to we the people. They will be we the people in 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 3 years in some cases, and next year in some cases. Why are we poisoning them? Why are we poisoning them with all its racism and hate and division? Anything from the vestiges of slavery should be abolished. Anything. People, human beings, were taken from their own land, sold by other black people and white people, sold by both black and white, because the culture today was that. Everybody did it. Brought to another land, told that they couldn't read and write, beaten that out of them, separated from their wives and their husbands and their children. Mom went to Mississippi, dad went to Georgia, son went to Alabama, and the other siblings went down to Florida, separated and never to be reunited. Not offered any education for hundreds of years. Any whatsoever. It was against the law to learn, against the law to read. The law. These are still on the books in some states. Look them up. They just haven't removed them for posterity or just good old days. I guess that's what everybody want to go back to, making America great again. And I hope that's not it. But it sure is leaning that way. Stand back and stand by was the Proud Boys, an openly racist organization. I was told. The Nazis on the bridge the other day all support themselves, really. They say they won't vote for Trump or Kamala, but I'm sure in their best interest as Nazis, Trump would be their solution, because he doesn't care. Trump doesn't care who votes him, as long as he gets the vote. I need those, what was it, 7,072 or 71 votes, whatever he said. All care, Trump cares about is getting those votes, nothing else. And so people understand this, and this is just kind of key, you know. Everybody said go back to a time where it was great. Make America great again. Back in 1924, there was a scandal in the government called the T-Dome scandal. And I mention that not because that had anything to do with the KKK at all, nothing to do with the Ku Klux Klan, but because that was one of the biggest political scandals of the day. You need to look it up. I won't go into too much detail about it, but it was pretty bad. During that same time frame, that same atmosphere, the Ku Klux Klan decided to have a rally at the T-Dome, like their Madison Square Garden of the day. And the Ku Klux Klan in their rally adopted the slogan, the Ku Klux Klan adopted the slogan, make America great again. And their meaning was to kill all black people, enslave them, any people of color from around the world, deport them. That was their meaning. And Trump adopted that. And this information is readily on the internet. You can look this up. And everybody just goes with it like no big deal. Trump says she was black, but now she's not black. He wouldn't even call her name during the debate. He never said her name once. And for those of you who don't know, back during times of slavery and Jim Crow, the way to hurt black people the most was to call them out of their name, call them Uncle or Uncle Tom, call them Mammy or some other, not diminutive, but reduced name, nickname, because a diminution of a person's name or a diminutive name would be oftentimes considered a term of endearment. In this case, it wasn't. It was about status. It was about you call them anything but their name, anything but human. Because we weren't even 3/5 of a person, if you remember, by law. By law. So during the debate, when he refused to say her name, that comes directly from slave owners. If your name was not mentioned, you can know a person for 20, 30 years, and they can work for you in the fields. And if you never said their name, means you had most contempt for them than others. It's a sign of racism. She walked up to him, shook his hand. He could have said, "It's good to meet you, Miss Harris or Kamala." He could have said anything. He didn't say anything. Pleasure to meet you too. On purpose, he didn't say her name because he would talk Pelosi's name up 50,000 ways from Sunday. She's white. He can do that. He'll talk up Liz Cheney's name 1,000 ways from Sunday. But he won't say Kamala Harris's name. That says a lot. And if you don't see that, that means you are just like him. Think about it. You adopt that policy. We have to put ourselves in a place that we're going to be citizens where we respect one another. More importantly, respect others' decisions and their politics. I don't like MAGA at all and what it stands for on any level. But I respect that it exists and I deal with it head on. I don't run from it. I don't try to hide that it exists. I don't try to play like I'm going to go and get along with them so they can be nice to me. I don't do any of that fake crap that most of you do. I don't do it. I'm not trying to fight you or antagonize you, but I don't agree with you. And that's my right. That's my right. And I won't let you step on my right to my dying breath. Some of the people I know and myself, we know more about death than you'll ever know. I'm going to leave you all with this. If I took all the protectors, all the people from every army, from every police, from every Navy, from every single Marines, from every FBI or FBI-like organization, Interpol, if I took every government official and police officer and fireman in the entire world, matter of fact, since the history of the entire world, if I took all of these people and I put them in one place for the last million years, all the protectors, not that it's been that long, but just being exaggerated for effect. If I did that and put them in one place, and then I compared that group of people, which has every protector that's ever lived in it, and I compared it with all the people they've protected that's ever lived, the protectors would equal less than 1%, 3/4 of 1%. That small group of people have protected the many, the hundreds of billions that have lived since the beginning. Have protected them. Yeah. It's not like 20% of the population protects the rest. And a lot of people running around and talking about, "Oh, I'm a patriot. I fight for my country." And they haven't ever picked up a weapon. They've never been shot at. They've never had to go into situations where they knew somebody, including themselves, could die. They've never had to do anything but sit home and watch TV and drive their big trucks and drive their beautiful cars and go to Harvard and all these Yale and Thornburgs and all this other kind of Thornbirds. Damn, Thornbirds, forgive me. I'm sorry, not Thornbird, Thunderbirds. They can go to all these different organizations and schools and live the good life on people's backs like me. like me, former Special Forces Green Beret, U.S. Army Ranger, and a whole bunch of other crap you probably haven't even heard of. You understand? On many different operations around the world. You got to understand the protectors out there are very few. So stop acting like you have gone and picked up a rifle and stood on a hill and guarded the post. Because your democracy in the United States, your democracy works all by itself if you support it. If you don't like something politicians are doing, change it. Don't just go along with everybody. Change it. Vote. Where else in the world can you say that and be against the leaders? Very few places you can do that. That is true. There are more places now you can do that because of the U.S. model. They just don't take the Electoral College with them. They take everything else but the Electoral College, which if you don't know what that is, you need to read up on it because those are the vestiges from slavery, the Electoral College. When blacks were 3/5 of a person, they first got the vote, and the South was underrepresented. So they invented the Electoral College to make that collective move towards making another person's vote another group of votes more powerful than other groups of votes. And I really do believe that is so egregiously wrong. But anyway, that's another podcast we can talk on, and I know a great deal about. A great deal. My family is steeped in civil rights activity from the beginning. My uncle was Dr. Martin Luther King's right-hand man. My aunt, Evelyn Gibson Lowry, yeah, that's my aunt. She died, of course. Dr. Joseph E. Lowry, one of the best orators and statesmen you'll ever see or hear in your life. A man of the people. Matter of fact, the name of his nonprofit was The People's Agenda. Wonderful human being. Civil rights for blacks, whites, poor whites especially, Asians, Hispanic. He fought for everyone. We've been around this my whole life. This is what we do. So I say all that to you. That's why you can't cower me under. You can't make me feel bad about the decisions I made about who I support and why, more importantly. Supporting somebody is great, but not knowing why you support them is just plain old stupid. It's just stupid. And it's about time America wake up. Trump could be the best president who ever fucking lived. He's too damn hateful. He's just too racist. He's too uncaring about all the people. It's all or nothing with him. No compromise. He could go down in history as the baddest dude that ever walked if he just cared. If he cared. If he cared. And he showed that empathy. He showed that desire to help other people. He rolled up his sleeves. He understood the value of having God in his life, which is, I'm surprised he doesn't burst in a flame when he passed by a church. He can't even, he's never even read the Bible. You can tell by the way he's talking. So that's undisputable. That's pathetic that the evangelicals in our country would back him. Why? It's a means to their end. Politics. Well, if I were in that position as the evangelicals, as the Michael-gelicals, and I had a group like the evangelicals behind me, I'd do the same thing. I would manipulate the president the best I could. I just would. So I'm not mad at you, evangelicals. But sometimes we take things the wrong way. Every bill that you see go in front of the president or every executive order he signs, any president, they're not there because we the people. Those bills are not there because you. They're there because of big business and banking, the Fed Reserve, their constituencies. the lobbyists. That's why that bill is on the president's desk, not because you put it there. And in a rare occasion that you did put it there, it's normally gutted to appeal and appease those very entities that normally put it there. Don't take my word for it. Start doing your research and learn. It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed this. I can do this. It's 2 hours. I will do my best in the future to make them shorter, but so an hour and a half, pretty good. I'll do my best to make them shorter in the future. And we can talk about a lot of subjects. I just thought I might talk about the U.S. campaigns and politics now because it's passionate to me what's happening with our nation. And I'm informed. I know what's going on. And I look at all the same things that everybody else look at on both sides. I look at everything. I read everything. And some of it sounds really damn stupid. And it's insulting that some people actually believe some of it. Now, yeah, Kamala Harris talked about no men in war zones right now for the first time in history during the debate. I think she just didn't understand the difference between police actions and war. And even if she did understand the difference between police actions and war, she should have never said that. She just shouldn't have said that because there are men in harm's way right now. They're not in active campaigns of operations going out, search and destroy kind of missions, but they're definitely there in case of. And that will always be the case. And that's how it is around the world. It's always how it's been in times of peace or war. We've had our satellites everywhere, our bases everywhere, our people everywhere. So that's not, different than what it's always been. But in this election cycle, you say one thing like that, and you make yourself look less credible. She never served in the military, but she damn have served the people of the United States. She's damn sure done that. So I can let that one go. I know what she meant to say. She just didn't know how to say it, or her advisors weren't smart enough to articulate that for her. But Donald Trump, verifiable, 34 lies, blatant lies during the debate. Been debunked all over the world by international, Democratic, independent, and Republican institutions around the world have fact-checked Donald Trump during the debate. 34 lies, and he did not answer one single question. You don't believe me, and you think when his lips were moving, he was actually saying something. Go back and rewatch the debate. Just don't take my word for it. Just rewatch it. He didn't say one single thing in response to anything. He deflected. He did the DC two-step. He arbitrarily went to different conversations during his time. He backtracked. The reason why the moderator asked him, to clarify on his question, because he lied about it just before the break, or he lied about it in his last statement, or he lied about it over and over and over, and he didn't want anybody to fact check him, so it's 3-1. But how can you proceed on an issue when you have, one, not got an answer, and two, when you do get an answer, it's a lie? And it's the lies he were telling that had nothing to do with the questions he was being asked. And that's just was ridiculous. Diverting attention from one thing to another to get off a soundbite is just plain old stupid. He could have said some great things during that briefing, during that debate. He could have just been powerful. He could have killed it if he'd have maintained his focus and spoke to the issues. He would be the next president of the United States. That's what everybody feared on the left. If that he went in there coherent, if he went in there strong, and he stuck to the issues, the left knew they were toast. But he couldn't do it. He brought hate, division, conspiracy theories, and just sheer stupidity to the bank, to the debate. I said to the bank. Hopefully, I'm finished my deal soon. But anyway, to the debate, he did that. Remember that. I didn't do it. You didn't do it. It's not your fault. He did that. He was woefully unprepared. And any intellectual thinker or doer in the world saw that. And they're all talking about it all over the world. I travel the world for a living. Everybody and on every continent thinks the same thing. Not just me. Only people who are saying, no, he won the debate. No, he was right on point. Oh, Kamala Harris didn't do this and didn't do that and didn't do this. All those people and naysayers are the only people who believe Trump did a good job. And I bet when they lay down at night, they can go to sleep and close their eyes. They say to themselves, God, I wish this man had stayed on point. Why am I having to defend this garbage? I hope you're doing that. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. We can have more discussions. I look forward. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to seeing you soon. I'm Michael Gibson, blah, blah, blah. You know.